And welcome back, folks. Thanks again for taking time out of your precious day to join us here. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to the Hustlemode podcast. I am your co-host, Neil Prasad, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Jason Rule. Tonight, we're in for a great treat. We are joined by a friend and colleague, President and CEO of Addrenaline Media, Kyle Hosick. He's here and going to be sharing a number of different tips, tricks, and techniques as we delve into the realm of digital marketing, which is on the pressing mind and cranium of individuals in today's ecosystem, considering that majority of the traditional marketing efforts are maybe not as, I want to say impressionable, because out of home is purely people are locked indoors and things of that nature. Anyways, we'll delve in a little bit more, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on Kyle. Actually, you know what, Kyle, why don't I just spin it over to you as a way of getting started? Why don't you introduce yourself and then tell the folks a little bit more about you?
Sure. Yeah. So as you said, my company's Addrenaline Media. I've been doing, everything I can creatively for about 20 years now under the Addrenaline moniker. I started building HTML websites way back in the day, Dreamweavering it up.
Y'all remember
and,
that.
Every year I like to think I've got better at having an eye for content quality and then content that cuts through the noise. So
Gotcha.
It's all about an idea for me. So if the idea is good and you can execute, and whether it's a simple photograph or a combination web design, photograph, video, if the idea at the core is good, I think you're onto something. And that's really been my focus. I've worked with small, medium, and large companies in Canada and the US. That's how I came to know Jason, actually, is some work I did when he was at one of the big banks. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm happy because I found the thing that keeps me happy. I don't consider it work. We're here late, and I'm all for it. I can't wait to have this conversation.
Yeah, no, that's great. As you're mentioning the introduction, the journey, and how we initially connected, Kyle, I always found that when we worked together, there was a level of professionalism as well as a level of creativity that I always got from you in terms of, we were doing somewhat boring corporate stuff, right? And you kind of found a way to jazz it up a little bit more and make it more interesting and engaging for us performers to really get into what we were there to do, right? We're reading from a prompter. Yeah, I get it. But when you saw the final product, it actually had a nice organic feel to it. It didn't feel like stuffy and corporate in nature. So, I always found that a very good way that you're able to pull that excitement out of your customer, out of your subject, out of your presentation.
Hey, thanks. Thank you.
It really, and it landed really well. Like, I unfortunately the organization started to do little things a little differently and sort of started looking at different things. There is a group now that exists that does a lot of the stuff that, if you look back that we started, like this, doing the videos, doing some of that more creative stuff. They've gone in a little bit different direction with some of it, but you were one of the founders that made that a thing at the bank. And I think today they're more better off having that content built and the approach that you use. So, just wanted to throw that in there because I think that's important for our folks out there listening to know, is that sometimes people can record videos, it can take photos, but sometimes the person behind it, you can really feel their enthusiasm. So,
Hey, thanks a lot, Jason. Yeah, I really kind of, now that it's 20 years deep into doing this, I hang my hat on, all of my clients need to have fun while we're doing what we do, and that's what will keep them coming back. It's great to have quality content, but if they don't want to be around you, they're not going to be around you, right? So
yeah, it's so true, right? It's like with the conversation that we had before about H to H experiences. People buy from people. They don't buy, companies don't buy from each other, right? So that's a great point that you make. It's funny. So as we delve into this topic, because our audience, and for those of you who don't know, like I'm in the same boat with Kyle, 20 plus years deep, scaled a few agencies in my time, but I always find it interesting to explore how the budgets are being chopped. And I find, with digital marketing specifically, working with clients, they tend to be they tend to scrutinize all of the metrics. Like it's the one area. I used to work in doing niche publishing, right? And you'd be able to do in the publishing world, your PMB measured, and it's like for every one copy, they say there's 3 eyeballs on it, right? And so they allocate sort of a membership or a readership based on total circulation. And as long as the postal walk was there, guaranteed distribution, and their friends saw it or was on a coffee table, hey, you're good, right? Brand awareness, it's there. The message is out in the ecosystem, is being consumed.
Yeah.
Move that over to digital. It's like, how many clicks were you received? What's the click-through rate? What was the bounce rate? Well, what was the impression count? What's the time on site? How did that get into my funnel, so to speak? Is there an active sequence based on the CRM after the fact, depending on the marketing automation channel, so on and so forth? I don't know, Kyle, am I missing anything on that front, or?
Oh, no, I think you hit all of the, buzzword stats that people are looking at. But I think ultimately what it boils down to is, you can have 1 million impressions, but if you have 0 sales, you have 0 sales, right? So I'm not a big stat guy, to be honest. It's a big part of my world, but it's all still about sales. Like I kind of have my left foot like back in like 1995, when it was still, not just about eyeballs and like passive scroll buys, but more connections.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
It's what's really interesting to see is, and I think we touched upon this in one of our earlier episodes, Jay, was the budget allocation. So there was a report that was done in the CMO survey, and it was actually by Deloitte. We spoke about this briefly yesterday, but just to continue on, in 2021, CMOs will spend nearly $120 billion on digital marketing. Right. So the average firm is expected to allocate about half of their total marketing budget to online. Now, fast forward, we're in a COVID environment. That doesn't really surprise me per se, but it's how the actual budget is allocated, right? Any words of wisdom, Kyle, for our audience there? Like, how do we slice and dice that budget? And now, granted, these are organizations and everything's is to be said, to put it in context, right? Like these are multi-million or billion-dollar organizations, starting at 25 million, going up to over $100 billion, right? So employee count is less than 100 employees to more than 10,000. So it's a huge range. The sample is only about 300 CMOs, but it gives us an idea as far as the spectrum is concerned of budget allocation, spend, market segment, so on and so forth. So I'm just curious, in your experience, Kyle, how do you see the budget being organized or allocated?
Well, you know what? I think for my answer on this question, I'm gonna look more at small and medium-sized business, because I think they're the ones in the tough position. Like it's one thing for MasterCard or Canadian Tire to blanket every sporting event and every social media feed, and pray that they land the new, a shopper in the aisle or a new credit card sign up. But for a business with 10 employees that is reading all about the power of digital marketing, and it's 2021. I'm sure everyone's tried their hand at some form of Facebook boosted post or online advertising, even on a newsletter that's an industry publication. I think in terms of the budget breakdown this year, it's like all gone digital, all of it. And everyone, even the publications know that. 10 years ago, their website overtook their magazine for annual revenue, if not earlier. So, to circle the wagons back to the actual breakdown, I'm still a big believer in the content. So if you're a small business or medium-sized business, it's one thing to allocate a lot of money on reaching the people, but if you're reaching them with garbage because you slashed the budget for the actual message, you're just wasting your money.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I want to get into that a little bit more because personally, obviously, we've had some discussions about content for my business and just trying to make sure that what we're putting into the world or what we're putting out there is good quality and it's driving a little bit of awareness. So with a lot of the brands that you work with, Kyle, like some of the, like you said, small to medium brands, what emphasis do you find on that content? Are they really saying to you, okay, hey, Kyle, this is a big deal for us. We want the content to be great. We need the message to be clear. Like, what are you hearing from, your clients, myself included, about the importance of the material that you're creating or the, overall content that you're putting together? Like, how are they ranking that in terms of, to Neil's point, the budget, but also importance in their business? Like, what are you seeing there?
Well, one of the funny things that, I'm exposed to business owners of all ages now. So I've got clients who are 60. They know what they're doing on a computer, and they would, right now, the hot thing for them is YouTube pre-roll advertising because they see it. They have, it has, advertising has to click with someone when they say, oh, okay, yeah, I have seen those ads. If I tell a client who's not on Instagram that they've got to be there and they've got to put money into producing reels, they don't care no matter what I say because they're not exposed to it. They don't know what that is. And they're not going to roll the dice and segment a big part of their marketing budget on an unknown. I've got a clothing store owner west of here in Ontario who everything is Instagram. It's all Instagram. That's where he lives. And so it's funny because I'm in a weird position where I need to know enough to explain to everybody the positive and potential negatives of every platform, but still adapt what I might suggest, pitch, or produce to suit their mindset and their online habits. So it's a weird time. Like, there's so many places you can put your money, whether it's even just something as simple as Google AdWords and helping someone get an AdWords ad up that they can see. Like, for some business owners, that's mind-blowing still.
Yeah, it's like you're showing them fire for the first time. Yeah.
No, I just got off the phone earlier today with a colleague of mine, and we were having that same discussion. And we were talking about social media ads and how their agency shit the bed, and they were looking at an annual renewal. And I was just getting into the metrics with her as far as like what was happening. And I said to her, it doesn't sound like they have your best interests at heart, considering that they have a templated email that's just being regurgitated, and all that's changing is the actual numbers in that email with no justification of A/B testing to their offsite landing page, or where these leads are going through their ads and time of day and or frequency, or if they're setting up a lookalike campaign on social. Like, it's just blanket approach. And
lazy.
I mentioned to her, I said, well, why don't we take a closer look at Google AdWords? And her response was like, I don't know anything about it. And I said, well, you know what?
I've heard that.
You don't need to know anything about it. So I automatically stopped her in her track and I said, are you an accountant? And she was like taken back. She's like, no, I have an accountant. And I said, perfect. So why do you have an accountant? It's like, well, I need somebody professional to look after my, you do you?
Right.
Well, it's the same boat, right? All of these self-proclaimed overnight success stories, industry experts that have XYZ amount of experience that have only been in the game for like 10 years, or not even, let's say 5 years, but they've been doing it when they were in high school. So now they're ready to play in today's marketplace, and they're learning on their dime, right? At the end of the day, these people have families to feed. They have to provide. There's mortgages and bills that need to be paid. It's a livelihood of whether or not that CEO is going to actually bring home a paycheck that month. They don't understand. right? It baffles me because like when I was in the thick of things with digital marketing for the agencies that I was repping, I was thinking like I was almost like a psychologist. I don't know if you're getting the same type of discussions, Kyle, but it was like, oh, my past agency, I spent $10,000 a month and I was doing AdWords and I saw zero return. And I remember I was talking with a guy that was doing doors and windows in Toronto. He was spending 50K a month on an advertising campaign. And he was livid, like absolutely livid, because he's like, Neil, I got my landing pages set up. I'm in different languages. I'm running different A/B testing. I'm doing social media ads. I'm doing Google AdWords. I'm like, okay, listen, pull up the analytics. Let's get into it right now. And next thing you know, we're looking at all these metrics. And he's like, why have 50% of my traffic coming to me from Russia? And I'm like, bro, you got the wrong agency, man. I'm sorry to tell you. Like, I really just want to help, right? And you know, I think, like you said, Kyle, you come from that area of wanting to actually help someone exceed and delivering and making them aware. Like, back to your point about the client not knowing the right medium or the right channel to deliver that message. I think that's where subject matter expert like yourself comes into the mix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think so. Like, I kind of pride myself on being able to explain the difference of the different platforms. But the way things go today, there's like a new platform every 14 days that someone say, hey, have you tried this? Hey, have you looked at this? And I get how it can be super confusing for a business owner to trust somebody with that first month's budget when they're basically throwing toonies and loonies up in the air and hoping they come back to them, but also experiment on a platform that they know nothing about and trust that they're going to find the consumer that they're trying to reach. And that's where I think, you know, business will always be about experience, because you can come out of university and say, hey, I know everything there is to know about social media marketing. And if you haven't been through, you know, shoulder to shoulder with a client who's spending a couple grand a month, and you're meeting with them twice a month to go through the brass tacks of, well, here's what did come in, here's what I would change, and here's how we pivot to make this better. Like, that's experience that's invaluable. And, you know, it's like someone who's going to come in and work on your house. Do you want them in ripping your kitchen out and you're their first project?
Right out of school. Yeah.
But they're out there. Those, you know, if they, you know, that's how I started. So I'm not knocking anybody. You have to say, oh yeah, I know how to do that, and then step up and do it.
Yeah.
So I respect that, but still there's an element here when you're trying to navigate all this stuff. If you've never sailed a ship, like, you're going down.
Yeah, you're hitting the rocks, right? I get the analogy, because when just looking from personal experience in this area, in this realm, not knowing anything about it is okay. But I think the key important thing, and both you gentlemen might be able to comment a little more about this, is really knowing what your message is. Like, the messaging from your client, in your case, Neil, in your case, Kyle, has to be clear. And maybe you guys can talk a little bit about that collectively between you, about when a client doesn't understand the messaging that they want to put out into the world, how you either coach, create, develop, fix, or align the message. Because a lot of times, you know, I struggle with this from our business perspective, is, you know, we know what we kind of do, but we don't necessarily know how to craft a good message that we want to put out into the world for stuff to come back to us. So how do you guys generally overcome those type of challenges with clients? Maybe I'll start with Kyle, and then Neil, you can top up.
Well, my thing is always, you know, this is like a couple decades of focusing on what other agencies are doing. Big agencies, medium agencies, everyone, even people outside the digital marketing realm, they've seen commercials that they thought were brilliant. They've seen print ads that they loved and identified with. And so I love, like, just gobbling that stuff up and looking at, like, the creative behind it, how, say, a company like IKEA use the same campaign on TV versus how they use it maybe in their own in-house catalog, or expanded the same campaign online. So I love that stuff. So when I get a chance to talk with a client about, you have to talk about your goals first. And once I understand the goal that the client has, then I can say, okay, so if you've got a suite of 5 products and you could only choose one that you would sell from here on out, which one is it? Okay, great, it's that one. So how do we craft a message that not only is going to move product X that you've identified, but also that, you know, in line with what others in the space are doing, but has a little creative twist to make it unique and resonate with the group you're trying to reach. And that's, you've got to understand the client, the mud in the middle, and then the group that's on the other side, and what they're going to do with the mud, and how you can sort of push away the mud for them to go, oh, I get it, there's product X, and this guy or girl has it, and I know how to get it.
Nice.
Hey, Jay, I think when you're editing this is when you bring in the roaring cheer from the crowd from the auditorium, right? Right? No,
not The Price is Right horn. Burp, burp,
no, I mean, Cos nailed it, right? You can always tell when you're working with a veteran, because at the end of the day, it's about so many business owners are caught up with the minutia and maybe where items are actually bottlenecking. And I think they have a hard time understanding that the message is the medium, but also in addition to that, taking a closer look at the elements that are being designed are not necessarily for them. It's for the end user. It's a user experience. It's the audience that's gonna, just because you as a business owner doesn't understand, you know, insert whatever social media channel here, doesn't mean that your audience is not on there. And not every social media channel is designed for every business to exceed that. This is just this, again, stemming off our initial conversation earlier on, Jason, right? Like with respect to, you know where you need to be and execute in what makes sense. But I love the mud analogy and what people are going to be doing with that. I think that's the key, right? To figure out exactly how that information is going to be consumed and to what level and what's the sequence that happens next, right? I think that's where you're going to find sort of where the separates the, what is it, the cream from the actual, is it the whey? I don't know what it is, but anyways, the cream rises to the top, right? It's like
you got it,
that little percentage of excellence that anybody can design an ad, get an ad up, set up an AdWord campaign or social media campaign or do YouTube ads or Google display ads or remarketing campaign, etc. But if the target audience isn't set up properly, you're not going to reach your end consumer, number one. Number two, if the creative is shit, you're going to get blamed, right? And what ends up happening is that they don't look to say, okay, well, maybe it was the creative, right? So what type of A/B testing are you doing? I think it's important to set the expectations earlier on with the client to let them know that we're going to have to work collaboratively to figure this out.
Yep. No, 100%. Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. I guess as a person who wanted to know more about that, I think you both touched on the key around messaging. I think messaging and marketing, I think, is one of the bigger areas that small businesses really need to hone in on. I know, like I said, from personal experience, I think messaging is huge because you really got to know who your customers are. You really got to know who your competitors are as well, and how you craft your message to maybe make you stand out from those two factors, stand out to your customers and obviously stand out to your competition when customers are looking at you. I always find it very refreshing when you start to get to that level of understanding how how your content and material and all the other things that you're putting out there really set you apart. So yeah, no, thanks guys for that. It's a great answer.
Well, some business owners, they, it's all, their business is trapped in their head, right? They know every facet of it and every little minute detail, and they think that's an advantage. So they want to have a hand in helping craft the creative, but it's a total disadvantage. And I
Okay,
like
tell me
coming
more. Tell me
in
more
out of
about that.
left field, knowing nothing about what they do, and then getting to hand pick the details that I think are important to them,
Okay.
and paint a picture using only the colors that I think they need as part of that picture.
Hmm. So do you
And I love that part of it. That's my favorite part. Like, sit down, talk. Okay, I get more about what you do. And then the actual creative, like, creative 20 years ago meant something unique and original. And the further we get into the 21st century, everyone's just copying everybody all over.
Yeah.
And that you can still be creative, but you're grabbing shit that you've seen somewhere else 9 times out of 10. But what's creative is if I take some sort of fashion Instagram reel I saw and flip it on its head and use it for a heating and air conditioning company, that's cool. But it's not, I still have a springboard there behind me that was that original Instagram reel that I happened to see. But that, that's probably been happening since the 50s, where print ads, it's like, oh, I like what they did with that photograph. And now all the ads start to look the same. And then through digital ads, the same thing. In the last 6 weeks, I've seen an Old Navy ad on TV, and all it is an Instagram reel.
Well, look at Burger King, right? Burger King just launched a new creative that was circa 1980 something. That's all of a sudden back in today's ecosystem, and everyone's like, wow, that's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It was done already. I don't know how many millions of dollars they spent for that, but it was already
done. It's like
done,
music.
right?
It's like music, right? Like, it's the perfect analogy. Heavy metal is going to be hot in 2 years. Trust me. At some point it will be, though.
It'll be back.
It will be.
Well, hey, my son's wearing Metallica t-shirts, right? And he's like 16 years old. You know what I mean? So like, it's what's old is new again, and what's cold is hot. Like, I don't want to throw the old comparison that things come back around in circles and trends come and go. Baggy pants or out now. You see some people wearing them again. Like it's
there you go.
Marketing and just society in general have such a weird intersection of how things can come back around when at least you don't expect it, or they come back around when maybe the timing is better than when they first existed, right? So who knows?
For sure.
Oh, just out of curiosity, anyone that you sort of have been following or consume, just to provide some value for our audience out there? Are there gurus out there that you gravitate towards, that you emulate, that maybe a business quote or something along the lines that sort of really
I absorb so much stuff that a resource like Adweek or Marketing Magazine, I love, like, kind of where they've done the lifting for me, and I can go there and look at like the week's top campaigns. But also just in my daily scroll, I see all kinds of different ads and approaches to different videos. And so I don't really, I'm very busy, fortunately. That's the other thing. My scrolling, once I'm done my actual like paper with all the stuff written on it in front of me for the day, I like to get away from it. So and I know that's part of the Hustlemode podcast, is like, what do you do outside of your business? Yeah. And I love turning the switch off.
There you go.
Because you burn out, and I'm no good to anybody if I can no longer look at my monitor and don't want to think.
Yeah, no, and this is a coming podcast, but we're going to talk about work-life balance, work-life integration, and how you could potentially balance the two. And, maybe some of us do a better job than others, and sort of, hustle mode on, hustle mode off.
Yeah.
And trying to make sure that we're hustling in the right
Hustle
direction.
mode in and of itself implies that there's another mode, and you need to go to that other mode sometimes.
Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, Kyle. There's definitely that that need to turn it off. And if you're constantly burning or constantly going during the course of the day, and like you're saying, especially when you're out doing like shoots or you're talking to clients, and the diversity of the things that you must do must really put a lot of strain on the sort of mental capacity, where you need to be thinking creative. That's one thing about being in a creative job. Like if your job is to be creative, like it's almost like you have to be creative all the time. It's like if you come up with something boring.
Well, you have to know what you're capable of. So like when we were talking about doing this call, we were talking about a night where I knew I was shooting during the day, and I was like, I'm not going to be any good. I can't do it, because those days take so much out of me, where all the gear has to be used perfectly. You've got to capture everything the way you were envisioning it a week ago. And once you're done, like I drive home and it's literally like, drop the bags, bring anything that's of value out of the van, and I'm done till the next day. And
you melt into the chair.
I can't try to work on other stuff after that, because I'm doing a disservice to myself and anybody who I'm, working on the project for.
Yeah, no, that's very, very, very well said. I think you got to have that. You got to know your limits, and you got to know your capacity, right? And like I said, being creative all the time could sometimes be very draining on your mental state. So
yeah, it's a burns rocket fuel.
Yes. Neil, looks like you're thinking of an insightful question.
No, I'm just curious because, I think just between 2020 and where we are right now, I read somewhere the other day that Canadian households are spending an average of 7 hours online per day.
Yeah.
And so,
geez, that seems low.
Right?
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. But it's like, and I was just chatting with the wife the other day about this. It's like from one screen to the next, right? Like we limit our kids. I mean, my children are very young. They're two kids under 5, and they don't have screen time. Like there's no iPad sitting in front of them. They see us using the phone, and when they do, if the phone's lying on the couch or something, they grab it and they're using the swiping motion. And I'm like, what the heck? They're 2 and 4. Like, how are they knowing that? My son now, when he gets the phone, he can navigate to YouTube and find a cartoon of his liking. So it's funny. Like, one part of me wants to be, okay, let's fully immerse them into this because I want them to be ahead. But the other part of me is like, I don't want them to have self-esteem, social issues pertaining to digital consumption at such an early age, because I want that balance, right? Like I didn't grow up with the internet. Cell phone, my first cell phone was 20 something. You know what I mean? Like,
I think we're all in the same boat and then that, right? Like we got our first cell phone at a certain level.
But like the point that I'm trying to make is that when I was chatting with the wife, I'm on the clock for this laptop sitting in front of me for 8 hours, right? And then my cell phone's right beside me. That it's constant between the two, whatever's going on between social and there. And then from that, I'm, going to YouTube on my big screen, and I'm doing market research for a topic that piques my interest for a couple of hours. Before I hit the sack, I'm looking at the phone again horizontally, and sometimes the wife's like, "What are you doing?" Right? And I'm like, "But I'm just reading. Like I'm just consuming." And I'm trying to understand some things and how they're working. And I feel it's not FOMO, but it's just I think, like to your point, Kyle, when you're doing something that you like or enjoy or you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work, right? But
Well, yeah.
To
It
the other-
really
the other-
doesn't.
The other side of the
I don't
coin-
think everyone talks about retiring and like sitting on a dock and reading a book, and that's like my hell. Like I would never want that. I would be pacing around that dock waiting for somebody to contact me to say, hey, I want to jam with you on something.
Hustlemode, what is it? Senior years?
Yeah, senior
Yeah,
years.
exactly. Yeah.
Hustle mode
Like
2051.
There's no retiring for me. I want to just keep doing this until I can.
Well, and the way it's funny you say that. I was having a conversation with the wife again about the whole retirement, because she's in a profession that has a defined retirement time, right? You have to retire and go away. You can't hang out there forever and just exist. And I was mentioning to her, I was like, for me, retirement is not so much doing nothing, but it's doing something else, right? Like it's like, instead of running a business and being involved in that place, it's managing a team of people that are doing a business, or managing aspects of a business, managing something in a different capacity. So yeah, retirement doesn't seem like it's something where you stop. It's more you change and maybe evolve into something. Like you said, if part of your fear of retirement, or your fear of slowing down is maybe you're, instead of doing 5 projects a month, you do 3. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's a different set of velocity, but maybe the same type of effortless work that doesn't seem like work to you, right? The level of stress goes way down, because instead of doing like 15, 20 things a month, you're doing 5. You do them when a buddy asks you. So yeah,
Sure.
that's a pod in itself, Neil, but we talk about what we want to do when we retire. But to your point, there has to be, if it doesn't feel like work, then it doesn't feel, you try to feel as less stress as you can with what you're doing. So
I want to provide some value for our audience here, and if we don't have the resources, that's fine. But I'm just curious, Kyle. So on the podcasts, on the YouTube channels, are you subscribing to anybody on digital like reference points? Are you reading anything right now that's sort of top of mind, or that you've read recently that you could suggest to an up and coming Kyle that wants to start a digital marketing agency? Like what tidbits of wisdom do you have for individuals out there that maybe is a little bit interested, or just wants to sort of brush up on this kind of stuff? Any resources come to mind?
I don't, if I read, it's to escape. Okay. So Stephen King's new book I just finished on the weekend. It's called Later. It was amazing. I don't read a lot of business books and listen to what other people, I get that there's value in those books, but I just, like I said, once I put my list down for the day, I want to go somewhere else. So I couldn't, there's people I like and respect out there, but no one I care to drop on a podcast and say, hey, check out what they do. Yeah, back to your point about consuming content, like even if I unwind, it could be me looking at the way they're shooting a Netflix special. So even when I say I've turned off, I'm still looking at the way they've lit a scene or how they've angled the guy on camera. And I'm thinking, I wonder what microphone they're using and what compression settings, right? So as much as I make it sound like it's easy to throw the switch, it's not. Like I'm still constantly evaluating everything that's put in front of me from a content perspective.
Yeah,
but I like that part.
I think we all do it, right? Like, I mean, even if you're looking at a website and you get frustrated because something's not supposed to be where it is, or something happens after you click something, or you're expecting it and you're like, this is crap. Like, who designed this?
Right,
thing?
you're dead to me.
Yeah, and it's like,
I had that with a pizza website on the weekend. I was like, come on, ordering a pizza, like this is like a WordPress template, and we couldn't do it. Could not do it. Goodbye, on to the next.
Exactly, right? And that's the thing.
Customer lost.
7 seconds to make a digital first impression. So the average consumer right now, it has the attention span of less than a goldfish, right? The average consumer has the attention span less than a goldfish. Think about that for a moment. So going back to your actual thought process on content delivery and you want to get as much information out there as possible because it's feature, advantage, benefit. People don't want to read that shit, man.
No,
right?
no, they don't.
3 by 3, like just get it out there. What's the top line? What's in it for me as the consumer, and how is that going to make my life better? Period.
Yeah. And where do I get it?
Where do I get it? Yeah. Well, and I think pulling on that same thread, Neil, and I guess is another question on the Kyle side is, so for the folks that don't know, or haven't looked you up yet by this time, listening to us on the podcast, you have a diverse set of approaches, capabilities, on-ramps, off-ramps in the digital marketing space. So when you look at and this, ignorant on my part, because I thought you were a video guy, but that's not all you do. You do a lot more than that. So just again, for our audience who may not be able to glean that from your website or, following on Instagram or whatever, give us a little bit of an overview of the breadth of things that you get involved with, Kyle, and projects that you add your magic to, your secret sauce or whatever, because I want folks to understand that you're definitely adding value in the digital marketing space, not just on the video and the web production side, but again, like, give us a little bit of an overview of, you can use examples as well, maybe a little overview of some of the things you worked on. But yeah, tell me more.
To be a true content creator / content marketer, you need to be good at a whole wheelhouse of skills. And for me, I place importance on brand design and brand communication. So whether it's a company name or your logo, for a video production, if I was just a video production company, and for me to come into a company and take their money and say, yeah, don't worry, this commercial's gonna be the thing that moves your product, when you're sitting there knowing that their overall brand is garbage, I just don't think that's fair. Every person and company has its place. I'm not saying they don't, but if you really want to provide a value add service to a client as a marketer, I've worked on web projects where I'm like, you should be rebranding right now. And I know nobody in your company thinks you should. So let's move ahead with the web project. No problem. Yeah, I will, we'll tackle it. But again, so branding, web design, photography is key. That's something I've been doing for ages, and I never actually created a site for my own photography. I always would say to a web client, hey, yeah, I'll come shoot all your employees and take a shot of your building, Photoshop, the bird crap off the side of the building and the nests out of the logo. And finally, last year, I was like, I know what I'm doing here, photography wise. And I put up a site at my own kylehosick.com, and I've got more business from these two companies sort of bleeding together than I could have ever imagined. And, it's a website is nothing without photography or video. All it is blue lines and red lines and letters. And so, for a web designer to truly say, hey, I'm a designer in this space, but I don't take pictures and I can't shoot video for you. What I can do is go on a stock photography website and grab all kinds of hands shaking and keys going into locks. It just doesn't cut it. It just does not cut it these days. And that's the difference. That's where I could get up on my soapbox here right now and say, you need somebody who not only knows all the different media, but knows all the different things you could improve in your sales process or marketing.
Love it. Yeah.
Of your company. And that again, that comes back to experience. But yeah, it's all stuff I love though. If you said, hey, what would you like to do? You could only choose one. I'd have a real tough time. I just worked with an event company that has a huge warehouse filled with inflatable games, arcade games,
Oh, Neil.
And they're not moving any of it right now. But he has a huge showroom, and I just worked on a project to come up with a name, a website, a logo for basically an indoor interactive playground with all of his stuff that one family at a time can book during COVID, an hour at a time. Everything's sanitized in between. But I loved every part of that. So I went there, I had my mask on, I took pictures of all the games, and I sent him initially a list of about 25 different available domain names that I thought would be cool, that not only represent, he could use in the future when the events business is back in action. But I liked coming up with those names on that piece of paper. I liked choosing 10 different font groupings that best represented the names that he said he liked best for my list. I liked choosing the best photograph out of 200 pictures I took in one night that could live on the homepage and represent the space the best. I loved every step of that. And I had to make a video where there was no one in the video. So I was literally throwing balls into nets, throwing axes at an inflatable axe throwing, to create the illusion of what you're going to feel when you're there. But we couldn't have kids running around, and you're just not allowed. So we adapted, and now he's moved on to marketing it, and he's got through his contacts, he's got some contra deals with magazines and websites where he's loaned them furniture in the past, and now he's got these 5-figure trade-offs for banner ads, e-news letter features through major Toronto magazines. And so I'm getting to help him decide how to use those credits now. And that's just one of the things I've been working on since January. But it's awesome. Like, I love every part of it: the brand design, the web design, photography, videography, and the tone of the text. And everyone's going to feel safe because we clean the whole space. And that's just one project. But when you ask me, like, okay, what are all the different facets you work on? It's a great example of like being able to quickly get something off the ground without burning through a 5-figure budget that you would with like a big agency who's like, well, this team handles this, and then this team over here is going to help you with the actual text messaging, and then you're going to pay for part of this building that's sitting empty, and that's where your budget's going.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Neil and I talked about that on the digital marketing side, is just how that budget's allocated and how there's disconnects all over the place, where you have different soldiers throughout the organization executing different tasks, and the synergies between them sometimes get lost. And I know being a one-man show, and we talked about this when we were talking about the thing, working together, us personally, but it's not so much a one-man show. It's a creative mind that, like you said, you can pull people in your business. Like with Addrenaline, you can pull people in to do directed things that you've already started. So you can tell people, okay, here's the vision, here's the creation, here's what I've done. Here, go put it the way that I want it, and you can
exactly,
right? So I think that's valuable. It's almost like you're.
So I shouldn't take all the credit. Like, I do have other team members. Like it sounds like I'm saying I can do everything, and I can't. But things like membership databases and actual web development for software as a service, like that, I don't sit here at this computer and do, and I have a team that do it. But yeah, exactly. Like, other things you can pull from even just my history of working with different videographers. Sometimes I need 4 people on site, and I know exactly who to call and bring in, and you've got the perfect team, and you're not paying for their downtime for the month. You're paying for the days they're there.
Yeah, and that's perfect. And as a small business yourself, you've got to that point where you can scale quickly if needed, depending on the client's requirements, which
Exactly.
there's no other way to do it, right? In my opinion, especially in the creative space, because you don't want to have, and Neil, you can maybe talk about your agency days. You don't want to have dead weight at times when it has, not dead weight, I guess that's the wrong way of putting it. You don't want to have unallocated resources sitting around that
It
you
gets
could
expensive.
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, I mean, and again, to Kyle's point, I mean, you have subject matter experts that is part of your network that's been vetted, that you've worked with for decades, that allows you to bring in partners that is the right fit for the project at hand, right? Anyone that's going to sit here and tell you that they're a subject matter expert on all things digital marketing, it's a bunch of smoke, man. It's not possible. It's absolutely not possible. Trust me. It's there's just on consumption alone for off hours, me personally, and whether that's, let's say 5 hours a day, multiplied by 7 is 35 hours a week, multiply that by 52 weeks, like you do the math, I still don't know everything. And I've been living this for like 20 something years, right? So it's important to know what your strengths are, play to those strengths, and make sure that you're being fully transparent when you're dealing with the client to ensure that I treat the money as though it was my own, right? And I'm sure, and I can get that passion from Kyle, that he does the same as a small business owner and a president of his own agency, right? I think it's important for the client to get what they pay for, but more specifically to understand that there's the right budget for the right partner, right? And because the vision is going to entail maybe, like you said, if it's 3 or 4 different individuals that are on staff that are shooting, or maybe it's a higher resolution camera that you need to rent for the day because of this particular shoot, or there's a permit, or you need to bring in drones or whatever the case may be. But also on the execution side, right? Maybe you need a marketing automation specialist that's doing integration with CRMs and looking at the email for specific email writing specifically versus content writing is a completely
Very
different type of writing structure. Even to that of blogs development and versus social writing. So content specialists that execute based on those particular channels themselves, it's not just content, right? Content is siloed based on the execution of the medium that you're writing for. So it's important to realize that, right? Like, and you'll get down through that path, Jay, as you enter into sort of future execution as we explore different opportunities later on. But it's very important to know that as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, that somebody might have a different price point for all these services, but it's important for you as the purchaser to do your due diligence, right?
Yeah, one size doesn't fit all. And I think to that point, as a business owner, looking at how you repurpose content, how you use content, it's irresponsible as a business owner to think that you can just do something once and then replicate it everywhere without any tweaks or updates, or it never lands well, and it makes you unfortunately look lazy or maybe disorganized. So, to that point, Neil, I see that as a very, not being in the field, being an outsider, a novice, what have you. I see that as a very important distinction, to have the right message for the right medium, so you're attracting the right type of, customer or interest in what you're doing. So yeah, great point.
Listen, guys, I think we can continue to talk for another hour easy on different aspects that I want to bring up, and I have no problem doing that. But Kyle, I think it was great having you on here today. You added a lot of value, being our first host, or guest, I should say. So thank you very much for your precious time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We appreciate that. As a way of exiting, why don't you let the people know how they can find you and what channels you're on and what's the best form of communication? How do people get a hold of you?
So yeah, hit me up at adrenaline.ca, and I spell adrenaline with 2 D's, and I have from the beginning because I want you to add me to your marketing team, whether you're a small business owner working for yourself or you're a company with 20 employees that doesn't have a CMO or a marketing department. My company was founded on adding adrenaline to the mix. So high energy, creative ideas, expert execution. So again, it's ADDRENALINE.ca. or you can check me out at Kyle Hosick. That's KYLEHOSIK.com. You'll see some of my photography there, and I'm at Kyle Hosick on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome. And we'll have all those links in the description below for those individuals joining us on YouTube. Again, for our audience, thank you very much for joining us here today. We hope that you found value. If you did, in fact, find value, make sure you smash that notification bell, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe. For our podcast listeners, I hope that you were able to get away a few nuggets of information to add value to your future digital marketing plan. Jason, myself, and Kyle are readily available at any time, whether it be through social or through email, and we can more than happy to set up a consultation or a call to learn a little bit more about your needs and how we might be able to service those as we move forward. But make sure to tell a friend, bring a friend. We do this on a weekly basis, and we're always open to hearing any kind of feedback that you have in order to make the next episode great. Keep your eyes on the prize, folks. Be safe, and make sure that you know the best is yet to come. Thanks for your time, folks. Have a great day.
Thank you.